Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today where we'll be getting into the Florida Panthers, of course, won the Stanley Cup on Monday. I haven't had a podcast since they won it, and we're going to get into how they won it, that Game 7 breakdown. We're also going to get into what's next for the Edmonton Oilers in the second segment. In our third segment, we'll get into my part 3 of my mock draft. As the last 2 Wednesdays, I've been talking about my top 30 for this NHL draft coming up on Friday. We're getting down to it. This is the final 2 days before that draft. I'm excited for it, and we'll be giving you my 10 through 1. In the fourth segment, we'll be talking about the NHL Hall of Fame inductees for 2024, as 3 notable names have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. We'll be talking about their careers, what they did to get into the Hall of Fame, and we'll just talk about who they were as individuals for the game of hockey as well. And then to wrap things up today in our 5th and final segment of the night, we'll be talking about the storylines for the Panthers' Cup win, talking about who gained the most from the Cup win for the Florida Panthers and all the guys that really etched their name into hockey history with that win on Monday night. But before we get into all that, as always, guys, if you would like to become a bigger part of the show, help out the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network, use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. You could also ask me a question, as I have my segment find out there. A little spoiler there. But you could ask me a question in the box when you go for that tips or donation, and it'll show up across the screen. I'll get to read out your comments or questions out loud live on air as well. So as I say that, we're going to get right into the first segment of the night, talking about Stanley Cup Final Game 7 breakdown, and that all led to the picture that you see behind the scoreboard right there. The Florida Panthers are your 2024 NHL champions, winning the Stanley Cup, the greatest trophy in all of sports, the hardest trophy to win in all of sports. The Stanley Cup goes to the Florida Panthers for their first time in franchise history. It meant a lot for these guys. How did they do that? Well, it was on the back of a day. We're leading up to this. Let me tell you, I thought there was no way they were winning this game. Like, truly, I thought that there was zero chance. We see it plenty in sports. A team coming back from 3-0 just to get shut down in Game 7. So, it happens pretty often. It happened last year to the Miami Heat against the Boston Celtics. And it happened earlier this month in the AHL with the Cleveland Monsters, the Columbus Blue Jackets affiliate, losing in 7 games after being down 3-0 going into Game 4. They ended up losing in 7 games to the Hershey Bears, who went on to win the Calder Cup. So, it happens. It does happen frequently. Well, I wouldn't say frequently. It happens like give or so every once in a few years, right? But for this felt different, and it really did. And I truly, everybody thought that the Oilers were gonna win this game. I was listening to the Spitting Chicklets podcast, which is a hockey podcast by Barstool that has Paul Bissonnette on it. It has Ray Whitney, and it has RA. And RA is a Oilers guy, from there. And he was talking about they ended the podcast with him saying, "And tonight, my Oilers are going to lift the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1990. I'm so excited." He said it like it was a foregone conclusion. It was just, they just needed to go through the motions. They just needed to go out there and play the game. It didn't matter how they played in it. They already won it. Well, the Florida Panthers and Paul Maurice and them boys in Florida had something else to say about it. Also, I gotta say, I said Panthers in 6 going into this series. The Panthers 1-7 made it a little bit more difficult than I thought they were, but I'm gonna say that was a correct prediction, which kind of redeems me from the conference finals, where I went 0-2 in the conference finals. I said the Stars versus the Rangers were gonna be the Stanley Cup final. It ended up being the exact opposite, but I also got every single pick right in the second round. So, I'm up and down in these Stanley Cup playoffs. I know what I'm talking about, then I don't, then I know what I'm talking about. But I end up knowing what I'm talking about, saying that the Florida Panthers were going to win this Stanley Cup, and they do. It was a fantastic game by Paul Maurice's side, the Panthers really suffocated the Oilers, got back to themselves that led them to winning games 1 through 3. Only giving up 1 goal against in this game is kind of the formula that they used to win games 1 through 3. This is the first Stanley Cup Finals in history where the winning goaltender gave up 1 or fewer goals against in all 4 wins in it. And that's just such a Sergei Bobrovsky stat. Sergei Bobrovsky has absolutely, you could say, definitely carried the Florida Panthers to be where they're at right now. They were the 1 seed in the Atlantic, but it was a little bit different. For this Florida Panthers team, I don't think that I can actually comfortably say that they are not winning the Stanley Cup with Anthony Stolarz in net instead of Sergei Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky was absolutely the difference maker, and in this 2-1 game, Bobrovsky is their number 1 star. The Russian goaltender finally lifts the Stanley Cup, and that hits me a little bit close to home. I watched him growing up while I was a kid. He was the Columbus Blue Jackets goaltender for pretty much my entire childhood. And I, coming from Columbus, was a Blue Jackets fan growing up. Still am, of course. But it was special seeing him lift the cup. It hit me in a place where I haven't really felt as a sports fan, because I was way too young when all my teams won. The Steelers won back in 2010, so I really don't remember that. Or 2009, sorry. In 2009, they won. The Ohio State Buckeyes won a national championship in 2014 when I was 10 years old. So I wasn't really there when they were winning. But to see a guy that I rooted for growing up, watched him win 2 Vezina trophies, one of the reasons I've absolutely fallen in love with this sport. Sergei Bobrovsky is a Stanley Cup champion, and it made me so happy to see him lift the cup. It's special. Even though it wasn't for the Blue Jackets, even if it wasn't for my team, I still watched this guy really will his team through 4 games in a Stanley Cup final, will his team beat another Russian goaltender in the conference final in Igor Shesterkin, who I said was the best goaltender in the world. Bobrovsky deserved this one. He was 3rd in Conn Smythe voting, behind, of course, McDavid, who won it, and Alexander Barkov. I think I would have given the nod to Sergei Bobrovsky over Barkov, but of course you're going to give it to Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid got all but 1 first-place vote for the Conn Smythe. I think he got 15 out of the 16 first-place votes, and then Sergei Bobrovsky got every single third-place vote. Bobrovsky deserved this cup. 23 saves, only 1 goal against in Game 7 where you just have to have it. He made crucial save after crucial save in the dying moments of the Game 7. I don't know if he made a save so McDavid gets the puck in the slot, and he is basically one-on-one with the goaltender, and Sergei Bobrovsky is out of position and kind of on his back, just flailing, trying to find the puck. And McDavid has it, and Gustav Forsling gets a stick on it, and then Zach Hyman tries to get a shot on net, but nobody could get it past Bobrovsky. But even if Bobrovsky didn't get a save from that, he still did make McDavid work harder. He made McDavid take that extra deke to his forehand as he got the puck in an awkward situation. He made McDavid second guess himself. And that's why Sergei Bobrovsky won. This is why that Gustav Forsling was able to get a poke check on that puck. Why Zach Hyman wasn't able to get a shot on net. Sergei Bobrovsky made McDavid second guess himself, and that second of decision making by the greatest player that the sport has right now is the difference in this game. Really, it is. If McDavid is able to just be more confident with that shot. I mean, he had the entire upper half of the net to shoot at as Bobrovsky was just kind of laying down on his back. If McDavid's just a little bit more confident in that moment, that's a tight game going into overtime, and who knows what happens in overtime in this game. Sergei Bobrovsky's efforts absolutely win them this cup. 4 games giving up 1 or less goal against in this Stanley Cup final. Fantastic. My second star of the night, it's Sam Reinhart. 1 goal, 1 game-winning goal, 2 shots on net. There was other guys that probably could have gotten this. I believe it was Sam Bennett, or was it Evan Rodriguez? It was another forward that had 2 points, a goal, and an assist in this game. But I like to go with Sam Reinhart because he's the one that gets the game-winning goal in the second period. If I'm not mistaken, is when that goal was. It's Sam Reinhart in the second period. Carter Verhaeghe was the one with 2 points in this game. Sam Reinhart with a breakaway goal is a difference maker in this one. He's the reason they're lifting the Stanley Cup at the end of the day. This guy went through a lot in his career just to become a 57-goal scorer, 94 points in a crucial season for him as a hockey player. He's up in free agency this season, and I've seen reports that he's actually going to walk. I've seen reports that the Florida Panthers are going to be able to re-sign this guy. He's coming off of a 57-goal year, getting a game-winning goal in a Stanley Cup Game 7, 10 goals in the playoffs altogether for this guy. What's he going to demand as a contract? That might be one to look out for. A lot of guys are going to want the service of Sam Reinhart. Went through a lot in his career. Spent a long time in Buffalo with the Sabres just not being up to par. And he gets his cup. And there's a lot of Sabres guys that got their cup in Florida. We'll be talking about that in the 5th segment. But very happy to see this guy win the Stanley Cup. He's been through a lot in his career. Finally getting his footing in Florida. 57 goals, and it's only fitting that he is the one that raises the cup, or he is the one that gets the game-winning goal to raise the cup for the Florida Panthers. It was also, the Florida Panthers got out the gate pretty well with a Carter Verhaeghe goal. It was a fantastic tip from Carter Verhaeghe. Something I mean, he just went out there, lunged at it with his stick, got to the puck, sent it to the 5-hole on Stuart Skinner, Stuart Skinner had a very good game in this one as well. You're not going to stop the tip goal. And you give up a breakaway goal, and that just happens in hockey, doesn't it? But very impressive tip by Carter Verhaeghe. Matthias Janmark pretty immediately goes out on the other end and gets another goal. And that happened within 7 minutes of the first period. And I'm really thinking to myself, ooh, this is going to be a high-scoring game. We're going to be going back and forth in this one. Nada. No more goals besides that Sam Reinhart one that gets the game-winning goal and got him to the second star of the night behind Sergei Bobrovsky. So the Florida Panthers are your Stanley Cup champions. We'll be talking in the 5th segment what that means for that team, what that means for that city, the organization, all the guys around that team that won their first Stanley Cup, and hoping for more for these Florida Panthers because, man, that's a fun team. Let me tell you, it's a good and fun team to root for. Very happy for them. Paul Maurice gaining his first Stanley Cup. We'll be talking all about that in the 5th segment. But that'll wrap it up for our first segment of the night, talking about the Florida Panthers. When I come back from my first break of the night, we'll be talking about what is next for the Edmonton Oilers, the losers of the Stanley Cup Final.